It's no coincidence that the first flowering of democracy on Earth happened at the precise moment progressive taxation was born. How did democracy first get started in ancient Athens? Turns out progressive taxation, that's the kind of tax where rich people pay more, was a key factor. The first step to democracy was the abolition of debt slavery, prohibiting the rich from turning debt holders into slaves. Another was the reform giving ordinary Athenians the formal status of a citizen. The transformation from subject to citizen was a crucial change in the attitude amongst the Athenian population. Citizens who showed up to vote in the assembly were also paid. Earning the equivalent of a day's wages made it possible for the non-rich to show up and help decide important matters. These conditions together helped create something completely new in ancient history up to that point: self-rule. Every male non-slave citizen had an equal vote on key political considerations like foreign policy, taxation, and spending. Juries made up of these same citizens ruled on legal disputes as well. A simple majority decided. In the late 4th century BCE, democratic assemblies happened about 40 times a year. Typically, 6,000 to 8,000 Athenians out of 30,000 showed up. This large group made it impossible for the rich to dominate the proceedings because there simply weren't enough of them. As Josiah Ober describes, the relatively poor were in the majority, giving Athens a much lower center of gravity than non-democratic societies. It also made Athens much more stable than other Greek city-states, which lived in constant fear of peasant or slave uprisings. But perhaps the most important factor in the development of democracy was the creation of progressive taxation. It's no coincidence that the first flowering of democracy on Earth happened at the precise moment progressive taxation was born. Democracy and progressive taxation went hand in hand. As tax expert David K. Johnston notes, feudalism, monarchy, plutocracy, and other forms of top-down rule typically have tax systems that put the heaviest burden on the poor. As he describes, before democracy, the brunt of the ancient Athenian tax system fell on ordinary people in the form of a flat tax. These people were forced to work so hard to pay for the functions of their government that they had little energy left over to play any role in running their government. It was only after the tax burden shifted to the wealthy that democracy could take hold. Political theorist Ellen Wood also noticed this relationship, describing how everyday Athenians were considered free peasantry. This meant that they were free of both the heavy rents, onerous fees paid to landlords, and heavy taxation, onerous fees paid to the government. This was the key that gave Athenian citizens the freedom and time to work their land and participate in democratic governance. Progressive taxation in Athens got going with Cleisthenes' reforms in around 500 BCE. A council of 500 citizens called the Boule was formed to identify rich citizens to be singled out for taxation. A major source of tax revenue came in the form of liturgies, special levies to get rich people to pay for public services. It was a great honor to be called upon to pay for a public liturgy, and those who paid them did so with a sense of civic pride. A rich person might be assigned to pay for a festival or a trierarchy, differing levels of financial obligation. Festivals were cheaper, and anyone who paid for one was exempt from paying again the following year. The trierarchy was a more expensive military contribution, paying for the commission and command of a warship and crew for an entire year. Over time, the Athenian progressive taxation system matured and became more complex as property taxes, tributes, court fees, customs duties, and other revenue generators were added into the mix. In ancient Greece, progressive taxation worked because there was a collective sense of fairness about the way those taxes worked. Rich people paid more because it was clear they were the most fortunate and therefore owed the most to society as payment for that good fortune. Not only that, taxes were something rich people were proud to pay. It was a demonstration that they were important. This taxation also came with a degree of public praise. When a rich person paid for a festival, everyone got to enjoy it, and everyone recognized that it was the largesse of the rich person that made it possible. Paying these taxes came with public honor and respect. The rich also knew what they were paying for and could see that everyone was able to benefit from that money. Could we ever get to the point where America's rich like paying taxes? Maybe we could learn something from the ancient Greeks, because when I think about billionaires today, the last feeling I have is a sense of gratitude. On the other hand, if a person like Elon Musk paid more for the general welfare, It sure might make him seem a little less monstrous. Please give a like, a follow, a favorite, and subscribe to my free Substack. Let's make them pay.